The DJ's voice echoed across the reception hall, warm and playful, calling all the single ladies to the dance floor for the bouquet toss. Laughter rippled through the room, glasses clinked, and the soft glow of string lights reflected against polished wood and smiling faces. My wife, Emma, laughed beside me and shook her head, insisting she was married and didn't need to join. But her sister, the bride, glowing with happiness and champagne, grabbed her arm and pulled her toward the crowd, saying it was just for fun. I stayed at our table, smiling like every other husband at a wedding, phone in hand, recording a light-hearted moment I thought we would laugh about later. The bouquet soared into the air in a perfect arc, suspended for a second against the golden lights. Emma jumped higher than I expected, stretching her arms confidently, and caught it. Cheers exploded around her. She stood there victorious, flowers raised above her head, her smile wide and bright. For a heartbeat, I felt proud. That was my wife, my partner, the woman I'd loved for years. Then she turned. She didn't turn toward me. She walked toward a man standing at the edge of the dance floor. He was tall, dressed sharply in a dark suit, holding himself with an ease that suggested he belonged exactly where he was. Their eyes locked in a way that made my stomach tighten. Before I could understand what I was seeing, she reached him and kissed him. Not a quick peck, not an awkward joke. It was deliberate, familiar, and comfortable. Her hands rested against his chest. His hand settled at her waist. Around them, people laughed and cheered, assuming it was part of the celebration, a playful wedding moment. But inside me, something cracked. I kept recording. My hand did not shake. My expression did not change. I stood there, silent, capturing every second while the noise of the room faded into a dull hum in my ears. When she finally stepped back, laughing softly and touching his chest again, I stopped the video and saved it. I walked outside into the cool night air because I refused to make a scene at her sister's wedding. Claire deserved her perfect evening. I would not be the man who shattered it. My name is Nathan Cross. I am 38 years old, a software engineer living in Austin, Texas. I work from home most days, attending virtual meetings in comfortable clothes, solving problems with code, building systems that are logical and predictable. I have always believed that life, like software, could be fixed if you studied it carefully enough. Emma and I met at a tech conference years ago. She worked in marketing for a startup, vibrant and confident, while I was presenting a technical session that only a handful of people truly understood. Somehow she saw me. We shared coffee that turned into dinner, dinners that turned into long conversations about dreams, ambition, and the future. Loving her felt natural, easy, safe. We married surrounded by friends who called us perfect together. For a while, we built routines, inside jokes, late-night takeout traditions, and Sunday mornings filled with music and pancakes. But as the years passed, the space between us grew quietly. She traveled more for work. I buried myself deeper into projects and deadlines. We stopped sitting down for breakfast together. We stopped sharing the small details of our days. I told myself it was normal. Marriage changes. People grow busy. Love becomes quieter, steadier. I thought we were simply settling into adulthood. I never imagined we were drifting apart. That wedding weekend in the hill country was supposed to be joyful. Emma had been stressed for weeks over her maid of honor responsibilities. I tried to support her in every small way I could. I packed our bags, handled errands, reminded her that everything would be beautiful. And it was. The ceremony overlooked rolling hills painted gold by the setting sun. Claire cried. Emma cried. I felt emotional too, watching two people promise forever. By 9 that evening, music filled the air and laughter spilled across the vineyard. Emma was radiant, dancing with cousins, hugging friends, alive in a way I had not seen in months. I remember thinking I was grateful she was happy. But happiness can hide secrets. When I replay that moment in my mind, what hurts the most is not just the kiss. It is the familiarity, the ease, the way she walked toward him as though she had done it before, as though it was instinct. My chest felt hollow, like someone had reached inside and removed something vital without warning. I stood there surrounded by celebration, yet completely alone. Later that night, long after the music ended and we returned home, the The silence between us was heavier than any argument could have been. At 2 in the morning, in the dim light of our living room, I turned on the television and played the video. The screen illuminated her face as she watched herself step toward another man. I did not raise my voice. I did not accuse. I simply let the truth speak for itself. Some moments change the course of your life without shouting. They arrive quietly, wrapped in celebration and laughter, and leave you standing in the ruins of what you thought was unbreakable. That night, I realized love is not destroyed in a single second. It fades in small, unnoticed distances until one day, the gap is too wide to cross. What she said when the video ended is something that will stay with me forever, because words spoken in shock reveal what careful excuses try to hide. And in that stillness, I understood that trust, once cracked, is never quite the same again. I kept recording. My hand was steady, my face empty of expression, as if I were watching strangers instead of my own life shifting in front of me. Through the screen of my phone, I saw her pull away from him, laughing softly, her fingers brushing his arm as though that touch belonged there. He leaned closer and said something I couldn't hear over the music. She nodded, smiling in a way that felt far too familiar. Then she turned and walked back toward the dance floor, bouquet still clutched in her hand, as if nothing had happened. I pressed stop. I saved the video, and I walked outside. The night air was cool and still, a sharp contrast to the warmth and noise inside. I stood alone in the vineyard parking lot, staring at my phone. I played the video once, then again, then a third time. Each replay felt heavier. The way she moved toward him without hesitation. The way he smiled, not surprised but expectant. The way her hand lingered against his chest for a moment too long. I wanted to be wrong. I wanted there to be some innocent explanation that would make all of this dissolve into a misunderstanding. But I have spent 15 years building systems, solving problems, studying patterns. I rely on facts, on evidence, and the evidence was right there in my hand. My wife had crossed a line in front of a room full of people, and I had captured it clearly. I didn't go back inside right away. I sat in the car with the windows down, listening to the distant rhythm of music drifting across the hills. My phone buzzed. A message from Emma asking where I was and telling me the cake was about to be cut. I stared at the screen before replying that I just needed some air. She asked if I was okay. I told her yes. It was the first lie of the night. I was not okay, but I was not going to ruin her sister's wedding. I was not going to raise my voice in a vineyard full of fairy lights and family photos. So I went back inside. I smiled. I clapped when the cake was cut. I even held her during one slow song, my hand resting on her back while my mind replayed the video over and over again. She felt warm and familiar in my arms, and yet I had never felt further away from her. We hugged Claire and her new husband and told them it was beautiful. Emma fell asleep in the passenger seat on the drive home, her head turned slightly toward the window, makeup smudged, breathing steady. I drove in silence, hands fixed on the steering wheel, my thoughts circling the same conclusion no matter how many different angles I tried to approach it from. Something had shifted long before that night. That moment was not the beginning. It was simply the first time I saw it clearly. We arrived home after 1 in the morning. She went straight upstairs and collapsed onto the bed without even changing. I stayed downstairs in the dark living room, the glow of my phone lighting my face as I watched the video again. I considered waking her immediately, demanding answers while the memory was still fresh. But I needed clarity, not chaos. I needed calm. Around 2 in the morning, I heard her footsteps in the hallway and the soft click of the bathroom light. I connected my laptop to the television and pulled up the video. When she came downstairs in pajamas, her hair loose and her expression soft with sleep, she looked at me with mild concern and asked why I was still awake. She said I had seemed distant since the reception. I told her I wanted to show her something. She sat beside me on the couch, unaware of what was coming. I pressed play. The screen filled with the reception hall, the bouquet rising into the air, her laughter, her jump, her triumphant smile, then the turn, the walk toward him, the kiss. The only sound in the room was the echo of music and cheering from the video itself. Her face drained of color. I paused the screen at the exact moment their faces met. I asked her quietly who he was. My voice did not rise. It barely trembled. She struggled to answer at first, then said his name. She explained that he worked with Claire's husband. She said they had met months ago at the engagement party. Months. I asked how long they had been talking. She insisted it was nothing, that they were just friends, that the moment had been impulsive and meaningless. She said the crowd had been cheering and she had gotten caught up in the excitement. She said it was stupid. I listened. Then I reminded her that she had caught the bouquet and had every opportunity to turn toward her husband. Instead, she had chosen someone else. I told her not to minimize what I had just seen. My voice remained steady, but inside I felt like a foundation was crumbling brick by brick. I explained that patterns do not lie. Distance does not appear overnight. Familiarity does not grow in a single second. The look in her eyes on that screen was not confusion. It was recognition, comfort, choice. The hardest part was not the anger. It was the realization that somewhere along the way, I had been standing alone in a marriage I thought we were building together. I had been showing up, believing we were simply busy adults navigating life. Meanwhile, something else had been quietly taking root in the space between us. The room felt colder than it had moments before. The television screen cast a frozen image of a single decision that now carried the weight of years. And in that silence, I understood that trust does not shatter with noise. It breaks quietly, in moments you can replay again and again, wishing each time that the ending would somehow change. I gestured toward the frozen image on the television. I told her this was not a random mistake. It was a pattern. She slowly sat back down and covered her face with her hands as if she could hide from what was already exposed. After a long silence, she admitted they had been texting. She said it was mostly about work, about life, about meaningless things. I asked how often. She said a few times a week, though her voice carried uncertainty. I asked to see her phone. The pause before she responded was louder than anything she could have said. That hesitation settled heavily in the room. I asked again, calmly but firmly. She reached for her phone, unlocked it, and placed it in my hand with the reluctant stillness of someone surrendering proof. I opened her messages and found his name. The conversation stretched back months. Hundreds of exchanges, morning greetings, late-night check-ins, inside jokes that did not belong to me, familiar words that once would have been ours alone. I scrolled slowly, my chest tightening with every swipe. Then I saw a message from 2 weeks earlier. He had written that he couldn't wait to see her at the wedding. She had replied that she felt the same, that it had been too long. Too long. I looked up at her. She was crying now, her voice shaking as she insisted nothing physical had happened, that it was just talking. I told her that emotional betrayal is still betrayal. The connection, the secrecy, the intimacy of sharing parts of yourself with someone outside your marriage, it all counts. I asked her if she was in love with him. The question hung between us like smoke in still air. She did not answer immediately. That silence told me more than any words could have. I handed her phone back and stood up. She asked where I was going. I told her I was sleeping in the guest room. She pleaded with me to talk more, to let her explain. But I told her there was nothing left to explain in that moment. She had formed feelings for someone else. She had hidden it. She had chosen to act on it while I stood only a few steps away. I looked at her carefully, searching for the woman I thought I knew. I asked her what she wanted to do now. Through tears, she said she wanted to fix it. I told her that if she truly meant that it would require complete separation from him. No calls, no messages, no hidden accounts, complete honesty, counseling, total transparency. She agreed to everything quickly, almost desperately. She promised she would tell me the full truth. I want to believe her. That night, I lay awake in the guest room, staring at the ceiling while memories replayed in relentless loops. Around 4 a.m, I heard her crying downstairs. The sound reached me through the quiet house. Part of me wanted to go to her, to comfort her like I always had. But I stayed where I was. I was not the one who had broken what we were trying to protect. The next morning, I made coffee as sunlight crept through the windows. She came downstairs with swollen eyes and a fragile voice. She said she had blocked him. She said she deleted everything. She apologized again. Then she asked if I still loved her. I looked at her carefully. I told her I loved the woman I married. I did not know who she was in that moment. The honesty hurt both of us. We started counseling soon after. In one session, the therapist gently asked her why she thought she had developed feelings for someone else. Emma said she had felt invisible. She said I worked constantly and that we no longer talked the way we once did. She said loneliness had crept in quietly. The therapist asked how I felt hearing that. I said I had been present the entire time. I had worked long hours to build stability for us, to secure our future. If she felt lonely, I believe she should have come to me. Instead, she had sought comfort elsewhere. I told her that feeling neglected does not justify betrayal. Choices still matter. Session after session, I realized something painful. Every time I looked at her, I saw the image from that screen. I saw the months of messages. I saw the deliberate decision to turn away from me and toward someone else. I began to understand that some fractures cannot be repaired simply by wanting them to be. One afternoon, in the middle of a counseling session, I admitted I did not believe we could move forward. The words surprised even me, but once spoken, they felt final. Emma looked at me as though the ground had disappeared beneath her. I stood up, knowing that no amount of discussion could erase what had already changed inside me. 2 weeks later, I filed for divorce. There were pleas, phone calls from family, arguments that it had not gone further, that people make mistakes, that marriages survive worse. But to me, the betrayal was not measured by how far it went. It was measured by the choices she made repeatedly over time. Every hidden message, every secret conversation, every moment she prioritized him over honesty. 6 months later, it was finalized. No children, no complicated assets, just signatures and silence. She moved away. I heard later that she and the other man tried to build something real from what had started in secrecy. It did not last. Time passed. About a year after the divorce, I was sitting alone in a coffee shop in Austin, trying to rebuild routines that felt steady again. A woman at the next table dropped her bookmark. I picked it up and handed it back. She thanked me with a smile that felt genuine and unguarded. We started talking. Her name was Rachel. She was a teacher, thoughtful and quick to laugh in a way that felt light rather than forced. There was no rush, no hidden messages, no secrecy, just conversation. For the first time in a long while, I felt something simple and honest beginning to grow. Not because the past had disappeared, but because I had learned what I would never ignore again. Trust is quiet. It is built in small, consistent actions. And when someone chooses it every day, it feels steady, not uncertain. Loss had changed me. It made me less naive, but also made me clearer about what love should look like. And this time, I promised myself I would never mistake distance for normalcy again. Rachel was kind in a way that felt steady, not loud. She was real, unpretentious, the kind of person who looked you in the eyes when you spoke and truly listened. After that first conversation in the coffee shop, we exchanged numbers. A week later, we went to dinner. It was simple and unforced. No games, no hidden meanings. Just two people talking about books, work, childhood memories, and the strange turns life sometimes takes. 3 months later, we were officially dating. 6 months later, I told her everything. I told her about Emma, about the wedding, about the video I never meant to record. I told her how it felt to stand in a crowded room and suddenly realize you were alone. I told her about the silence in the living room at 2 in the morning. I told her about the counseling sessions and the moment I understood that love cannot survive where honesty has already left. Rachel didn't interrupt. She didn't criticize Emma. She didn't rush to give advice. She just listened. When I finished, she reached across the table and gently squeezed my hand. She said that it must have been devastating. I nodded. It was. She asked if I still thought about it. I admitted that sometimes I did, but not with the same sharp pain as before. Time had softened the edges. She smiled and said she was glad the pain was fading. 2 years later, Rachel and I stood under soft lights, surrounded by friends and family, promising to choose each other every day. It was a small ceremony with a big celebration afterward. People joked that we were what a strong partnership looked like. I didn't laugh it off this time. I simply felt grateful. At our reception, the DJ called for the bouquet toss. Rachel laughed and said she was already married, but her sister insisted she join in just for fun. She stepped on a dance floor, smiling. The bouquet sailed into the air. She caught it cleanly, almost effortlessly, and without hesitation, she turned directly toward me. She walked across the floor, eyes locked on mine, and kissed me while the crowd cheered. I didn't reach for my phone. I didn't need proof. I knew exactly where I stood. About a year after my divorce, Emma sent a message. It was brief. She apologized and said I deserved better. I stared at the screen for a long time before replying with two simple words. I know. Then I blocked her number. Not out of anger, not out of bitterness, but because that chapter had already ended and I had no reason to reopen it. What I learned through all of it is this. Trust is not only about faithfulness. It is about consistency. It is about honesty in the quiet moments. It is about choosing your partner again and again, especially when life becomes routine and distractions appear. Emma did not drift away because I worked too much. She drifted because she stopped choosing us. And when someone stops choosing you, you cannot force their heart back into place. You cannot love someone into loyalty, but you can love yourself enough to walk away from what diminishes you. I still have that old video saved. I have never watched it again. I keep it not as a reminder of betrayal, but as a reminder of clarity. It marks the moment I realized my worth was not tied to someone else's decisions. It reminds me that I deserve a partner who turns toward me without hesitation. Today, I have that. If this story speaks to you, let it remind you of something important. Choose yourself. Choose peace. Choose honesty. If you have ever faced betrayal, if you have ever rebuilt your life after disappointment, know that healing is possible. The strongest response to being hurt is not revenge or bitterness. It is growth. It is walking forward with dignity. It is building something better than what you lost. Because the greatest victory is not proving someone wrong. It is proving to yourself that you deserve more and finally believing it. In the end, this story was never just about betrayal. It was about awakening. It was about the quiet moment when illusion falls away and truth stands in front of you, undeniable and clear. Sometimes love does not end with shouting or chaos. Sometimes it ends with a realization, a calm, painful understanding that you deserve to be chosen without hesitation. Nathan's journey was not about revenge. It was about self-respect. It was about learning that when someone stops choosing you, the most powerful thing you can do is choose yourself. Healing did not come overnight. It came in silence, in reflection, in hard decisions, and eventually in new beginnings built on honesty and intention. Not every broken story has to end in bitterness. Some end in growth, some end in clarity, and some end by leading you exactly where you were meant to be all along. If this story moved you, if it made you reflect, if it reminded you of your own strength, then you already understand the message behind it. There are always truths hidden behind smiles, secrets behind celebrations, and lessons behind pain. For more powerful stories about love, betrayal, consequences, and a strength it takes to rise above it all, subscribe to Veil Lies. Step behind the curtain. Discover the truth. And remember, sometimes losing what you thought you wanted is the first step toward gaining what you truly deserve.